Zoe, for arranging such an amazing series of events today. The things that you guys are doing is really going to help these students of today and the future to find their feet. So, big props and a round of applause to you yourselves. And thank you for actually putting this platform together. So my name is Zahra Thomas. I'll say I'm entrepreneur first and an IT manager second. I currently work in financial services, and I've been doing so for about 7 years now. Entrepreneur by heart for about 15 or more. And I work with lots of startup companies and have a couple of my own businesses and love everything tech. I've been techie for years, and I'm sure we'll dive into a bit more about that later on.
Perfect, thank you. Radhika, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Radhika. I'm going into year 11 in September, and I'm really interested in computer science and physics, and I'm one of the interviewers today.
Thank you. And Aarti.
Hi, I'm Aarti. So I just finished year 13 and I'll be studying a flexible combined honours degree, so biology with French at the University of Exeter next year.
Perfect, thank you. And Steph?
Hi, I'm Steph. My background's in law. I'm also an entrepreneur by heart, I guess. I like to do many, many different things, but my main passions are law and teaching, and also dance, which you'll hear me say every time if you ever hear me speak. So that's me.
Thanks, Steph. And I'll just finish off. I'm Zoe, one of the other co-founders. I have a background in engineering. I also love tech. I currently work in tech, and I love education. I love everything creative, reading, writing. That's pretty much me. So now we've introduced ourselves, I will hand over to Radhika and Aarti to kind of lead this discussion. So just feel free to just flow and ask any questions that come up, and moderate the chat because we'll allow people to write questions in the chat. Thanks, guys. Handing over to you now.
So our first question was if you could tell us more about your journey to where you are now. And are there any challenges that you'd like to share about your journey so far?
Okay, so I started, so I'll take you back to like university. So I went to Brunel University and I studied international business. My time there, I actually was lucky enough to be awarded a scholarship to attend university. And with my scholarship money, I started my first official business called Unifly, because I couldn't believe how amazing university was. And I didn't feel like, as I was going through the experience, I had enough information about the actual process. It seemed like a very scary place, hard to get to, very expensive, a lot of stress, and there wasn't enough positivity around all the positive things that come out of university, apart from just the degree and the bill at the end. And I really wanted to kind of share that with other people wanting to come to university or maybe wanting to come back to university, and also connect all the students that are at universities around the UK. I feel like there's so many people studying maybe international business across the UK in different establishments, and they'll never really communicate. And at the time, it was just the rise of Facebook, and I utilized that platform to bring students together, talk about their university experiences. We had like a little clothing line at the time. We had loads of different types of events to engage. So that's how I kind of started. And I think that's where I really got to start to utilize a lot of tech to help me in business and to like get my confidence when it came to speaking publicly and interacting with different people, different backgrounds. So I did that for about 7 years. And from that, loads of opportunities came. I was asked to work for an online magazine. And then from an online magazine, I co-founded an online ticketing selling platform called Ticketmad. And on the platform, it was basically at the time to kind of add an option for event planners to sell tickets on platforms not as massive as like your Ticketmaster. If you was doing a small event of maybe 500 people, maybe 100 people, you could sell your tickets on our platform. I went from doing that to doing actual shows and events and concerts, and I just basically started from there. And when I was in that industry, I started to develop more my tech side. So I'd build websites and applications and find ways to make the online ticketing platform better. So my love for tech really started to come through. I've always been a gadget person, and I'd definitely rather buy a gadget than like a pair of shoes or a bag at the time. I always had like the latest phone, and I was always interested in the latest gadgets. So I wanted to see how that will start to communicate together. And with my degree in international business, I understood the importance of globalization, trying to basically get the world talking to each other. And I wanted to be a part of that in the very early stages. So I started to look a lot into coding and developing. After my time at Ticketmad, which was about 2.5, 3 years, I had loads of issues in terms of imposter syndrome that we're going to touch down on a bit later. And what was the main themes out of that is feeling like I was too young, and there wasn't a lot of women in my industry, and it was very stressful for me at the time. And I decided to leave that industry and go somewhere where I could get a thicker skin. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I knew that banking or financial services, especially investment banking, was meant to be like a really scary place where you might go in and be told, get a thick skin, or this has to be done, so you have to kind of just get on with it. So I applied to go and work in investment banking, and I ended up actually working for Nationwide Building Society, which was actually one of the nicest organizations I could have ever worked for, and it still changed my life for the better. Within that company, I worked in project management, and I did that for 2 years. And then from there, I kind of got headhunted and went on to work where I am now. So it's been an amazing journey, and I wouldn't change much of it, but I would definitely share with you what I've learned from it.
Okay, so our second question is in relation to Ticketmad. So you're a co-founder of that, so it's kind of to get any insights to increase awareness and customer reach and just generate business in general. So for people who want to build their own business, so any tips you might have?
Yeah, definitely. So it was a selling platform. The platform was designed to sell tickets, and we started from absolutely nothing. So it was really important to have authentic engagement, because a lot of businesses were kind of popping up similar to us and you don't know who's behind it. So the main thing I did is decide to actually create a face and a brand behind. So I did a lot of one-to-one engagements by basically reaching out to anyone I knew that was doing an event and saying, this is our platform, actually walking them through it. And one thing that really worked for me at the time actually is before the website went live, I would send a beta version, so a version of the website that wasn't available to anyone else, to potential clients, and make them feel like they're getting a really exclusive access to some information, and actually think about how I can build that relationship. Because at the end of the day, I know we had a product that would be beneficial to them, but just as much as it would be beneficial to them, it was obviously going to be beneficial to us as well. And I wanted to make sure that we could have business with them for, 10, 15 years. So I was always thinking about long term, and sometimes you have to take small losses before you can get the bigger wins. And I think that mentality can be lost at times, and it's really important to build those relationships and think about longevity and things that you might have to do in the short term for bigger achievements. So in terms of engagement, I think always try to be as authentic as possible. Make sure that the product that you're offering, people know the why, like what's the value in your product, and always have great customer service. It's so important. People like to feel special, and that's never going to change. So it's always important to make people feel special and actually value everybody that you kind of interact with. It's really important.
What does your current role as an IT manager at Banking Standards Board entail?
At the moment, everything. But on a day-to-day, my main job is to make sure that we have the infrastructure available to ensure that everybody can do the job that they need to do at the right time. And that varies. And that I split that in more or less into 2 levels. So the first level is our core infrastructure, the day-to-day things that just kind of have to work, from the internet to the firewalls to, security to physical hardware. And then a level above that is the things that actually make people more productive or make their jobs easier, and ways to actually use technology as an influence to make everybody's life a little bit easier. I work with a lot of suppliers, and that's really important, again, going back to that natural engagement, because our suppliers are the reason why we can be as successful as we are within our IT department, because we depend on them for consultancy, for advice, for support in different ways. So it's really important. So skills that I've developed throughout university, engaging with people, being honest and authentic, that still comes through as an IT manager, because my relationships are one of the most important things I have there. But on a day-to-day, it's mainly managing the infrastructure and developing projects, which is my favorite bit. So For me, a project can be anything from deciding to update some software to building a whole new application or a server, or rolling out, new hardware or something of that nature. So it varies. And what I like about my job is I'm the most techie person there. So I'm involved in so many different aspects of it. We are a very small startup. We have less than 30 people. So I get to engage across, the board at all levels, which is really good, really fantastic.
That's really amazing. So do you have any key tips for someone who actually wants to enter the tech industry? So what advice would you like to have heard when you were younger?
I think the main thing, right now we're so lucky, there's so many resources, and I wish I had access to all the resources we have now, because the tech game is so broad. I think some people think that tech is down in the basement or, locked away. And I remember having shows like the IT Club, or I think it was the IT Crowd or something on E4 or something. And it was based in the basement, and they were really like forgotten about, and no one, only people only spoke to the tech guys when there was an issue. I would wish I knew how massive the tech industry is, and there's so many aspects of it, from coding to development to project management. There's so many things that you can do, and I think right now you have so many resources. If you go into an organization and you want to go into tech, I'll say let them know that you're open to exploring different elements of that industry. I don't think you should be tied down to one particular part of it, because it is so big and so broad. And as you start to dive in, you might find out that you like user testing, or you like development of some sort, or coding, or managing infrastructures. So my advice is to actually use all the resources we have at your disposal. YouTube, there's so many online courses and conversations like these, and find out what element of the tech game that you enjoy, and actually don't feel like you have to stay in one place. You can evolve and you can move, because project management, which I worked in at Nationwide, was considered to be tech as well, but a different type of technology that we use. My role there, I built a whole bank account infrastructure for young people. So still in the tech industry, but a completely different kettle of fish when it came to the work. So I'll definitely say explore your options. Watch things on YouTube, learn and see what bit you like, and then go into an organization and be very clear that you're happy to shadow and to look around and see what part of the industry you really enjoy.
That's really helpful advice. So I know you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier. How have you managed it as a woman working in technology in your journey?
The hardest thing, and it's something that you keep on doing as you develop, is advocating for yourself. I don't actually like the term imposter syndrome, because the idea of a syndrome is something that's attached to you for a long time. I think that feeling like you don't belong in a space, you can actually like identify that within yourself and literally give yourself not to stress yourself, but to say, this is how I feel at the moment, but you want to be able to move past that. And I think in times you might go through university, work, and have experiences where you're overwhelmed, and you have to take stock of the space that you're in and assess, is it you that is feeling that way, or is it a situation? There's moments in time that I could be on a project and everything could be going wrong, and then I might start doubting myself or my capabilities. But then if you stop and take stock, actually, what is the issues, and you actually write those down, you'll probably discover that a majority of those issues aren't coming from you directly. And the other thing about imposter syndrome is not enough of us talk about it outside of events like this. I mean, in the day-to-day, when they're having that feeling, so you feel like only you are experiencing that. And again, that's false. Anybody, your own boss, your CEO, your lecturer, can have that feeling, oh, have I earned my space here? So I prefer to say, see yourself as maybe a seed in an environment, and you're going to grow and evolve. You think of a plant, when it gets to a certain stage, it has to be repotted, it has to be moved, it might have to go into your garden, and might become a massive tree. So I think there are times in your life where the environment you're in, you have to take stock of it and adjust. But I don't think you should put a limitation to yourself to say, this is where you are. With imposter syndrome, it also gives that false impression that you don't deserve to be in that space. So I'd say, like, imagine yourself going to a party, your friends invited you to a party, there's no plus ones, but you've come anyway, and your friend's like, oh, don't worry, it's fine, just come. And you go to the party and you're just kind of hoping that nobody sees that you haven't been invited, or nobody, you know, says, oh, what are you doing here? So you kind of try to fit in as much as you can, and then you just take whatever they offer you because you don't feel like you deserve to be in that space. And I think when you talk about imposter syndrome, that's what ends up happening. If you don't feel like you deserve to be in that space, whatever anybody offers you, you would accept it because you're just grateful to be there. So I think at times you need to say, actually, what's great about me is me. There's only one of me. We're organic, you know, look at your fingertips, remember your fingerprints, you know, there's only one of you. And in those moments, you then work out that you're here because they wanted you and you're meant to be there for a reason. So don't ever feel like this title, you know, imposter syndrome is you for, you know, once you feel like you're uncomfortable in a situation or overwhelmed, that's now a label on you for the rest of your life, or, you know, a long period of time. You can move past that pretty quickly. It's really important to take stock of your feelings. And at this age, I think it's a great time to stop and say, actually, why do I feel like this? And actually, I still do it. You know, if I feel overwhelmed, I stop and I feel like, what's making me feel overwhelmed? And when have I felt this feeling before? And what makes me feel better in that situation? When I worked at Ticketmad, I've been into, you know, events and you know, meetings I've been invited to. People saw me. So people say I have a young face now. Imagine how I looked when I was 18. And they'll be like, yeah, do you mind if you get, you know, your CEO or the boss to come and get in contact? And I'll be like, oh, it's a bit awkward because I am the boss. And they'll look at me and be like, okay. And deals will literally fall through. So I'll end up not only feeling like an imposter, but actually feeling like, actually, I'm also failing because people are retracting or not taking me serious because of the way I look. And I realized it's not actually down to the way I look. It's actually about what I deliver. And I had to focus on actually how great I am. And with time, people will learn to accept who you are. But advocating for yourself is very important. Making sure that you know, and it's difficult. I'm not saying the minute you say, you know, I'm amazing, everybody's going to accept that, but just standing firm on your beliefs and knowing with time, even if people don't catch up, by the time they catch up, you might have evolved past that space anyway, and that's fine, that's their loss. But having that confidence in yourself to know that you deserve to be in the space that you are. And a lot of smart people suffer with imposter syndrome because some things happen really easily for them because you're brilliant and you're intelligent, and actually that's something to like wear as a badge of honor. And not enough people say, no, I deserve to be here. So practice saying that you deserve to be here and you did well and you put in those hours and you worked hard and you studied hard. You deserve to be in that space. You made it look easy. Well done for you. Like, start enjoying that.
That was amazing. I think I'll have to rewatch this to get all your key bits. So would you say you have a morning routine which sets you up for the rest of the day? Is there something that gets you ready to face a new day, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I do. I have it a nighttime and a daytime. I'm one of those people that like to kind of organize myself from the night before. So in the morning, I don't have to feel under pressure because I'm not necessarily not a morning person, but I just like to be very chill in the morning. I love music. I love bass. So in the morning, if I really want to motivate myself, I'll put on a good tune. I like to take time to actually pamper myself. Everybody seems to be in a rush these days. You have to slow down. You have to give your body, you know, the time to wake up and give it the nutrients and vitamins it needs, because this is the one thing that you have. This is your home. This is your first home, and to take care of it. So I put a lot of time into actually making sure I wake up nice and happy. And I like to organize myself the day before so I'm prepared. So I like to be prepared so I don't have to get prepared.
We have a question here. How do you overcome imposter syndrome when you feel like you are a token, like because of your gender or race in your school or workplace?
Yeah, that's really difficult. I think at the moment, during the current climate, it is a very, it's great to have these kind of type of conversations because they're really important. And not everybody that feels like they are experiencing something against them have the language or the confidence or should have to always stand up and say something about it. It's very tiring and it's very draining. And just to let you know, I understand completely. And in those situations, when you feel like you're being tokenized and you feel like you're here just to tick a box, it can be difficult. But you know, again, well, for me, I know the value that I add. So I always say to, you know, my friends, every time I get a new opportunity, I try to go as far as I can in that space of time that I'm giving it. So when I was working at Nationwide, I knew I was only going to stay there for 2 years, because it was based in Swindon and I just couldn't get down with living in Swindon. So I knew that I could give it 2 years. And my aim I set for myself was to go as far in my career in that 2 years before I left. And I set that target for myself. So in those situations, unfortunately, at times you kind of have to block out those negativities and recenter to yourself and set targets for yourself and decide what you want to achieve in that space and to utilize it for your best interest. If they have you there to tick a box, let them also tick a box for you as well. It's a two-way street. Working at a university, there's so many resources for you. You have to explore things to your benefit as well. So if you're at a workplace and you think they're utilizing you to tick a box, go on the mentorship program, ask all the 1,000,001 questions, actually take the benefit from working in that organization. And when you can, and you have the confidence to do so, advocate for yourself at all times. Speak up and tell people when you feel uncomfortable, and tell people when you're not happy about something, and also shout about when you're doing great work, and shout about all the great things that you are and who you are. And also use that opportunity to network and find people that appreciate how great you are. It's very rare to be in an organization everybody is a negative person, or you know, you have a negative experience. Find some people that align with you and they can advocate for you as well. That's also very helpful. So I'll say it can be very tricky and very difficult, but always advocate for yourself and stand on what you believe in. There's actually a quote that I really love by a lady called Kimberly Crenshaw. And he says, treating things the same can generate as much inequality as treating the same thing differently. And that basically means, you know, in these situations where we're talking about Black Lives Matter and talking about actually having a bit more diversity, the requirements for someone that maybe come from a diverse background isn't the same as somebody that doesn't. So if an organization or a space is going to make space for you, they truly have to make space for you. It's not just about making everything the same, because creating a platform that everybody's comfortable is not about giving everybody one of something. Somebody might need 5 or something because of they didn't have. So it's about creating a space where everybody can be comfortable and putting the pressure on organizations to do that and doing more to account for you. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think nowadays there's so much we have access to make our voices heard. And I think there are ways of, if you're not happy, you can always, I mean, I wouldn't suggest turning to social media, but there are ways of making yourself heard if your company is not actually listening to you. So our next question was, do you have any top tips for being more productive? So we just had a session on loads of tips for that, but just to hear your take on that.
Yeah, productivity, that's an interesting one, because people ask me about how I stay productive all the time. For myself, my sister laughs at it, but I love a list. I like making lists, and I like actually writing them down pen to paper. There's something about writing down things on paper that helps it stick into your mind better. So for me, especially a busy work day when I've got a lot of things happening, a lot of meetings, I like to kind of make myself a list of the things that I want to do, and I rank them by importance, and then basically I work through it that way. It's very simple and very basic, but it has worked for me for many, many, many years. Always try to stay organized. I know that feeling when your inbox is full, you've got a lot of things on, and you feel really overwhelmed, and you kind of want to run away and ignore or stop responding to your messages, or there's things kind of pile up. Take your time and work through it, and set yourself small increments of tasks. So I might say to myself, okay, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try and clear out as much emails as I can. And then after that 20 minutes, I'll just stop. And then I might do it again a bit later on in the day. So I set myself small things that I can actually do. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves. If I wrote a long list and I said I want to achieve that all in a day, that's not reasonable. But I'll say how much of each thing I want to achieve in a day. Or I might say, out of this list, I just want to do this one thing. And I actually will say, if I do it, like, well done, you achieved what you wanted to achieve. So try to make the things that you set yourself out to do, things that you actually can achieve in a day. Don't overwork yourself or put too much pressure on yourself.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to ask from the chat one of the questions. So, what impact has COVID-19 had on you, on your businesses, and is your corporate profession and in your corporate professional capacity, and how do you overcome challenging moments?
Massive impact. My whole organization went from working in a physical space to working all over London, and I had to straight away find a way to manage everybody, but while keeping my cool and getting calls at all times, having my director come into my house asking for help. I had to be very calm and I had to act like I had it all under control, and I did have it all under control. But the main thing again with that is I relied a lot on my suppliers to support me, and I planned things out really well. I kind of made a list of the major risks and the threats that would be an issue to us during COVID. But actually, when I spoke about before productivity and actually planning ahead, a lot of the things that were probably a bigger issue to other organizations weren't to us, because I've been working on these things retrospectively for months, and I've been planning something what we call disaster recovery, where we basically kind of test out our environment under different strenuous situations. So I've been planning for that for a long time, and what it's given me is reassurance that planning, actually putting things in place early is better. You know, they say prevention is better than the cure, right? So it's about thinking ahead and actually thinking about things that people aren't thinking about in times to come. Never did anyone in my organization think there'll be something that stopped everybody from going in the office. A lot of our plans, you know, accounted for things like theft or, you know, lack of access to a system, but no one thought that, you know, there'll be a day when everybody was denied from coming into the workspace. So a lot of planning. The main challenge that I think I had is making sure that everybody, you know, worrying that there might, because we have a major system that we use, I'm worrying that that won't be able to be accessed from home. So I had to actually work on overcoming that and turning off my IT manager hat and actually being able to relax, because it became my home and my workspace became one. So I had to really work on actually saying, you know, after this time, I'm no longer working, I'm going to have my downtime. And that's really important. It's really important to give yourself downtime and to switch off, because remember I said to you before, your body is your first home. You have to look after that first.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, so I'll be going to uni next year, and I just wanted to hear about, were there any things that you wish you hadn't done in first year that you learned from and you changed your approach and then used for the rest of your degree?
No. So first, I'm trying to think. No, do you know what? Overall, I kept my head, because I got a scholarship, right? And my scholarship was based on my grades that I achieved. So I had to maintain a certain grade level. So yeah, that was a big motivation for me to actually keep my head down. But I think what's interesting and what's really important is actually to learn, work out how you learn, because everybody learns differently. And then once you come out of the structure of school or college, the onus on doing that is on you, and you have to work out what works best for yourself. So one of the things that worked best for me is after a lecture, after I wrote down my notes, I would, you know, break them down for them to make sense. Because a lot of time I'll be writing in shorthand or writing really quickly to get everything the lecturer was saying. And actually, I'll try to spend an hour to 45 minutes to an hour writing out my notes and actually making it make sense. So when it came to revision later on, when I go back to read it, I'd understand it. I'm not saying that I always did that, but that's a really good tip, and it's a really good way to kind of keep ahead of everything. But yeah, so work out how you learn and what's the best method for you to retain information. And also, don't be afraid to ask questions. Your lecturer has office hours for a reason. Utilize it. For my dissertation, my lecturer and she wrote a book on my dissertation subject matter, which was really handy. And I used to get 2-hour slots with her. She's like, nobody utilizes the office hours. And I ended up getting a lot more support on my dissertation because I used the resource that was available to me. So everybody else was, you know, trying to work it out and, you know, not speaking to a lecturer. Speak to your lecturers, go to the office hours, you know, build a relationship with them, a rapport with them, because when you need them, they will actually, it's their job to help you.
Another question, how do you keep going when you're feeling low or down, but you know you have something important to complete?
That's a very, very, very good question. Very good question. So it happens to me often where I have a lot happening in a day, and then I might have a paper to write, and I have a deadline on the paper, and I'm getting loads of distractions. And within that time, sometimes it's difficult to manage everything. What I tend to do is I like to take myself out of that environment. So if I have a paper to write and I don't require the internet and I'm getting bombarded, I'll literally just switch off my internet connection and just have my Word document and start writing the paper, and actually block that time out of my diary. I also like to put myself in an environment that's like makes me feel happy. So my happy space is, you know, kind of chilling in my room, music playing, or a podcast. I really love podcasts, and I'm gonna share a list of some of the podcasts that I listen to, or a good audiobook. So I love reading, but I don't always have enough time to read, so I've now opted for audiobooks, which I love. And I'll put on that audiobook and maybe light a candle and get in my Zen space and actually focus on the task at hand, and set myself for small tasks. So I might say I might write the opening for my paper by this time, then I might have a little break and then do something else. It's not always in that situation. Sometimes I have to just do things because I have to. Time constraints are there. I might have other people relying on me, or other people needing to read the document, or I might be adding something to somebody else's paper, and you just have to kind of dig deep and just kind of get it on. And then when you have those moments, you know, understand why you feel like that, understand, and actually work out how you can stop yourself being overwhelmed in the future. And sometimes say no. Last year, to a mentor who's now a very good friend of myself, we had a conversation about just trying to say no to people for a year. Literally just saying no. So if someone says, you know, can you do this? No. You know, if someone WhatsApps me, I don't have to respond to you. You know, it's absolutely fine to turn off your WhatsApp, put on your do not disturb, saying no, because other people don't always understand what you have going on. So pushing back and making sure that you can create a space where you can thrive.
I think those were all the questions that we had. And yeah, don't know if anyone else had any other questions that they're dying to know and get some insight into. Okay.
Thank you. That was really good. I hope you guys benefited. And if anybody wants anything else, I'll have my LinkedIn put in the chat as well. So you can reach out to me if you have any other questions.
Yeah, there was a question that just came in, so we can quickly do that if that's possible. So how do you get over the feeling of letting people down when you say no?
It is a tough one. And you know what? The next bit of that I didn't say is saying no without having to justify your no. That's the hard bit. I'm still, but to be honest, it's not about letting other people down. It's about what you're giving to yourself. And in life, it's a healthy balance. I think, you know, you have to understand that life is literally a game of give and take. Everything we do is giving and taking. It's just the way the universe is actually set. So you have to find a way to actually be comfortable with actually putting yourself first at times. It is really difficult. I'm not saying it's an easy situation at all. It can be really, really hard. But in those moments, you know, when you start getting out of the habit of justifying why you have to say no, don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up about it, because you know in your heart why you can't do something. So then don't feel bad about it. Living in a life of regret is really, really difficult and really bad for your health. So if you say no, you just have to then leave the no out there. You know, you say no and you kind of release yourself from it. That's the situation I'm in right now. Unfortunately, I can't offer that support, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. And, you know, in other situations when you feel like you can, and I'm sure that you will. But in that time, you just got to be confident in saying no and releasing that, not putting too much pressure on yourself or feeling guilty. It's really important not to beat yourself up about things that you can't do, because that's going to take your focus away from the thing it was going to do, instead of doing a thing with an ox or something of that nature. So try to focus on saying no and actually having confidence and conviction in your no.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Zahra, Aarti and Radhika. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Zahra, you've dropped amazing insights, so thank you so much. And we'll definitely share your LinkedIn as well, so if people have any follow-up questions, they can talk to you about that. If you also want to send us at Doceo any questions as well, we're happy to answer them. Please message us on any of our social media platforms. We've also popped in Aarti's LinkedIn as well, so if you want to reach out to Aarti on social media as well, please do. And if you're a student and you're interested in taking one of these interviews in the future, Again, just be on the lookout for our social media posts. We're always trying to give out as many opportunities as we can to connect you guys with different industry professionals. So please do keep an eye out, and we'll know to reach out to you to let you know when these opportunities come by again. But I hope you guys have really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so, so much for taking out 30 minutes of your Saturdays to come and do this. And I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.